Om Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Sadasiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Shankaram Shankaracharyam Kesavam Badarayanam Sutravashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha. Good. Okay. I just want to, make sure that the recording is happening. Because the Mac allows me to have any number of screens open. I've currently got 14 screens open on my desktop. This way, if my eyes fleet from side to side, you will know why. Okay. Wednesday night, Aparokshanubhuti. Welcome back to some of you. We're traveling and various things. We haven't got a huge contingent today. A few people have said that they aren't able to join us, but welcome to those who have. As usual, we're now starting to get into the more meaty sections. Does anybody remember anything that was discussed last week? Any questions? Anything of note? Janet, you're inching forward as if to speak.
Um, yes, I mean, it was meaty last time, lots of definitions and things. I was very struck by I am, verse 27, I am free from attributes, I am free from dharma, adharma, etc. But I am free from action and
Yes.
movement. All travel is in consciousness, everything moves in me and I never move. And I was struggling getting my head around that, to be honest.
Yes, absolutely. So the fact is that consciousness, all pervading, does not travel from anywhere to anywhere.
Yeah.
And as a result of being all pervading, it does not change. Without change, you cannot perform actions. It's a very big set of statements that, because what if you actually understand that entire sequence you just said, then there's no reason we can just close up and go home, right? You're enlightened. It's strung them together in a single sequence, and it's all true. But the whole idea of this document is that gradually we unfold that, and
Mm.
we come we come to understand that we are eternal. Eternal does not change. Therefore, any changes that are happening is not me changing. Those changes happen in me. I'm the awareness by which the change happens. There is no change that does not happen without me being aware of it. My awareness must be bigger than the change. So therefore the change happens in me and not me in the world. So
But it's where karma comes in, I think. That's what I'm struggling with.
yes. So if I'm incapable of change, I'm not the doer. If I'm not the doer, then karma isn't associated with me. Karma is associated with the little me. The mind and the body does. And whoever performs the karma has the benefit of the results, the punya and the papa, the consequences of that karma. And therefore the consequences of karma also don't belong to me. So there is no concept of dharma or adharma. I can't be good or bad because good or bad means that I've performed some action or I'm about to perform some action or I have an opinion about good or badness. All of that takes place in the mind and body. I'm beyond that. I'm that by which those actions can be taken. I'm the eternal witness, the non-changing, all-pervading witness to all of that. Therefore, I cannot perform karma.
I kind of get it on one level, but then I mean the issue of escaping the cycle of rebirth and death
Yes.
due to, okay, if the mind body vessel is doing the karma, it's still the vessel for the consciousness, and the actions of the vessel can, well, I suppose, remove that vessel from in which there is reflected consciousness. So
Yes,
yeah.
it's this eternal problem of trying to, because we're in this dualistic experiential transactional world,
Mm.
which we need to be in order to understand that we're not this dualistic transacting medium. All
Mm.
right. But it is to understand that and then to say it is the body and mind that reincarnates. I'm around whether the body and mind is present or not. All right. I was there before the birth of the body, and I'll be there after the death of the body. And when the body comes again. And the mind is just contains a reflected element of me. So that's what makes it an individual mind. So these things are incarnating, all right, the whole time, because I haven't yet realized that I'm actually the bigger me, the bigger I, rather than the little I. As soon as I realize that I'm the higher I, you realize that all of these are appearing as me. All right. They are. I'm transacting. It's myself that's manifesting through all of these things, and it's no different to me. I am appearing as these things. There's nothing that changes, right? But but the story goes on. That's why they keep on saying about the modern version is the cinema screen. I'm the screen, irrespective of what story is played out on there.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter, in the inferno, I don't get burnt. And, in some deep sea movie, I don't drown. And all of it exists within me. If the screen wasn't there, there would be no movie. It all happens over and over and over again, right? But I'm constant. I'm that screen that's constant throughout.
Mhm.
Yet, for all appearances, it looks as if we have hundreds of movies that are being played out on the screen for somebody who does not know. So, yes, it's a difficult thing always. Whenever you think about a question about non-duality, you say to yourself, I'm thinking with a dualistic mind, and therefore, how do I need to appreciate that in order to understand what the non-dual element of this looks like? Yeah,
Okay.
it's non-trivial, but yeah, you got it exactly right, because these are the things that need to be contemplated. And the lack of karma is because I no longer identify myself with being the doer,
Okay.
because it's the doer that does and
Okay.
suffers the consequences.
Thank
Well
you.
caught out. It's a lovely part of that verse, and it has everything in it. But as I said, if we understood that one verse, we can just pack up and go home and say, Ram, I was enlightened at 7:46 yesterday, and therefore I don't need to do any more, or words to that effect.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions or observations that came up? Is everybody able to follow? Are the notes good enough, even if my words are a bit? Are the notes good enough for people to follow what's going on? Is it? Okay, good. Anything anything else that came up? I quite like the fact that you never work for freedom. You're either never free or ever free. It's either one or the other, and you never need to work for it. Because you're never free, even working for it, you won't get free. And if you're ever free, then why would you need to work to be free? So I quite like that bit. I thought that was good.
Yeah, I think he gives the Buddhists a bit of a hard time unnecessarily.
He does. He does
I
give
think
them.
he's picking on the Buddhists who can't explain themselves properly, who don't really understand it.
Yes, he is a little bit. Remember at that time also the geopolitical environment up there was that the Buddhists were coming along really strong in India. I mean, Adi Shankara and in the 8th century was reviving Vedanta, and much of it was much of the Upanishads, copies of it that people had just gone to dust. Nobody was really studying it, and Buddhism was on a strong march. It was going out of India and going into other countries within the East, changing as it did so in China and in Vietnam and Seoul and Cambodia. The Buddhism changed as it went from the Indian type of Buddhism, and it was diluting the Vedanta. So he really saw himself as a bit of a champion to bring Vedanta back. So yeah, he does give them a hard time, I know, and it's not meant to be personal. So so
But
he just picks on this
thing is,
Sunyavada.
Buddha studied all of it.
Yes, Buddha was an Indian prince of a high rank, and therefore he would have been schooled. He was old enough when he left, so that he would have done his brahmacharya. Almost certainly, Buddha would have studied all of this. And it's only when he started his grihastha life that he had a wife and child that he decided, no, I don't like this anymore. I'm going to leave. And he gets on a horse and or whatever it is, elephant, and he leaves. And then he does his traveling, and then he very much simplifies Vedanta in order for it to be available to the mass public. And he does it in his own style. But almost certainly, we understand that he would have been well schooled in all of this, being the rank that he was.
I mean, you can hear that I can I can hear a lot of commonality, especially in the words. So they use the same words, samsara, dukkha,
Yeah,
sukha,
yeah,
avidya. They use the word ignorance, but they call it avijja in Pali.
yeah. That's
So
right.
that Alan Watts, the Alan Watts, he described Buddhism as stripped down Vedanta ready for export, which kind of sums it up, you know.
Yes.
So yeah, you're right. You're saying, I think, they call him in India, the Vedantins, they call him Bhagavan Buddha.
Yeah,
The,
that's right.
yeah.
Yeah. And some people consider that he is actually a reincarnation. Some people consider him one of the reincarnations of Vishnu. So yeah, he's held up the Buddha is held up in high regard, but some of these ideas, especially the one that Adi Shankara picked on here, the one of Sunya, how can you say just because it is non-transactional? How do you say it's non-existent? Because it
But I
is.
think, I mean, it's the phrase that I would pick from Buddhism is that void means void of form,
Yeah,
which is pretty much exactly what a description of sort of Brahman is. It's just like
yeah.
it is empty of attributes. It is empty of anything you can describe as being a thing.
Yes, and elsewhere you hear it described as it is the nothingness that is the everything.
Mm.
So yeah, it's how deep do you go?
It's
If
half
you
full or
take
half
that word on
empty.
its own, people misinterpret the word emptiness, but
Yes,
you have it in context with the rest. They talk about formless, that it can't be known reality, it can't be objectified, things like that
yeah,
on its own.
yeah. No, there's a lot of commonality there for sure, for sure. So please, all you
It's
ex-Buddhists,
interesting
don't take
when
it personally.
it's interesting. If you ever study Brahma Sutra, it will really show what's the difference. And we are getting glimpse of it with when I'm doing that 5 years study, and Shamiji is actually giving some glimpse of it. I haven't told Ram yet how the difference are so deep, and actually that will throw us everybody. So I'm keeping it. What is the? I will explain. I will explain one day what is whatever I got the knowledge from Shamiji, and is the two sets of, not just there's the Madhyamika Buddhism, there's a 4 sects of Buddhism, and who did what sort of understanding that will come in Brahma Sutra hugely, because that will nullify everything. Anyway, sorry, we're just
So
going
Brahma Sutra is only to be studied when texts like this no longer create a headache, right? That's when the Brahma Sutra starts from. It is considered the highest level.
It will take 2 years for everyday study.
Yeah, that's right. So, and it's a comparative analysis of every single argument that you can say, but actually argued from all the angles to say which one would be a correct view. So it's very analytical. But as I said, the Upanishads are considered middle ranking in terms of difficulty. The Bhagavad Gita is at the junior level. The same Upanishadic message and the Brahma Sutra are the supreme, the top of the structure. So when you've studied everything else and you run out of stuff, you go and study the Brahma Sutra. Maybe one day, when I'm about 152, I will run the Brahma Sutra class as well. And all of you will be centurions, and you'll be around me, and we will study it together. How's that? Okay. If there's no other immediate questions, I will move on. I believe that we had completed verse 30, and we were on 31 from today, if that's correct. Okay. The translation reads, the Supreme Purusha, known as I, ego, is but one, whereas the gross bodies are many. So how can this body be Purusha? And as we said before, the last part of the second line of these verses is repeated. Basically, he's saying, and how can the body be this pure consciousness? He's repeating that at the end of every line. So in the previous verse, last week, we saw that Atman is pure existence, and it can never be objectively experienced, but it is evident in every experience. Do you remember that? That it's in every experience, but it cannot be experienced itself. It is evident as the aham, the I, the experiencer. So the fact that, and the example I gave was the hand and light, is that that they go together. All right, the pure consciousness goes with the nama rupa, with the object. They are inseparable, and it's a result of the pure consciousness that the nama rupa, that the object is known. It's because of the light that the hand is known. It's because of consciousness that any object is known, right? But you cannot separate the object from consciousness to say, let me have a peek at the consciousness by itself, all right? It is evident in every experience, but it cannot be subtracted from the experience and seen objectively by itself. But the very fact that you have an experience means that pure consciousness was present. Do people follow that? It's a little bit tricky, but do follow that the two have to be together and they're inseparable. So whatever experience I talk about, the common factor is I, right? I experience sorrow. I experience happiness. I experience waking, I'm dreaming or sleeping. In all of them, I is common. And for the evidence of that I, no mental process is required. Right? The evidence of that I requires no mental process. To experience form, the mind has to go through a particular process and figure out what that form is. All right? To experience sleep, there is a particular process in the mind. But I am ever evident without requiring any process. When you listen to my words here, your mind undergoes some change. But for the I to be evident, the mind does not have to do anything at all. Therefore, it is evident in the form of aham, as the I. Pure consciousness is evident within you in the form of aham, the very I itself. So since the consciousness is evident in and through the mind and body, the mistake we make, the mistake we commit, is that we mix the two together. We mix the mind and body complex along with consciousness. It's just like the light in the hand. We commit the mistake to mix the light along with the hand. And the dimensions of the hand are included in the light. So when I hold up my hand and I see the light upon my hand, the dimensions of light, of the light, become the dimensions of the hand. Right? I've now associated the dimensions of the hand onto the light. So we associate the dimensions of the object upon consciousnness. So the light appears to be located in the hand. And similarly, when I say aham, I, the all-pervading, light-like consciousness, if you like, I'm evident throughout the body. All right? I appear to be located in the mind and body, just as the light appears to be located in the hand only. The dimensions of the body belong to the body and not to Atma. Once you include the dimension, once you include the body and mind, that I, that aham, becomes an ego. When you remove the dimension of the mind and body, that aham, I, becomes Atman. Right? That is the difference between big I and the little I. The little I, you're identifying with the body. You're confusing consciousness and the body together, and you've got a little I that's known as the ego. When you don't confuse consciousness with the mind and body, consciousness no longer has the dimensions of the body, then what you have is Atma. All right? We make that confusion. So add the dimension, in comes the ego. Remove the dimension, and the ego goes away. Use the word aham, but don't take the dimension of the mind and body, and understand that the dimension belongs to the body. Right? If you include the dimension, the primary meaning of aham is ego. The primary meaning of I in English is the ego, because we're associating it with the body. But if you exclude the dimension of the body, we have to take the secondary meaning of aham, which is Atman. The secondary meaning of I is the bigger I, the Atman, pure consciousness. If you include the body, the aham are many. The little I's are many. You have as many as you have bodies. But if you separate the body and take consciousness alone, aham is one. It is non-dual. It is limitless. It is beyond the body. Right? Remember, light is neither a part, product, or property of the hand. The light by which you see this hand is not a part, product, or property of the hand. Light is on the hand, but is distinct from the hand. It's not influenced by the hand. If my hand was wet, the light would not get wet. If my hand was dirty, the light would not get dirty. Similarly, consciousness is beyond the body. All right? Bodies are many. Bodies consist of many parts. But Atman is partless. How can the partless Atman be the same as the partful body? Adi Shankara asks. The body is infinitesimally small, whereas Atman is infinitely big. How can the inferior body and the superior Atman be equated to be one and the same? We have managed this miraculous thing of associating this infinite I with this finite body, and we've made it possible. We've made the impossible possible because of our favorite word, Maya. We have confused and fused together the bigger I with the little body because of the power of Maya. Verse 32. I, here meaning ego, is well established as the subject of perception, whereas the body is the object. That is learnt from the fact that when we speak of the body, we say, "This is mine." So how can this body be Purusha? Remember last week I went through very quickly the term Purusha. People understand that we're using Purusha not as a body and a male body as that, but we're talking of Purusha is another term for pure consciousness, Atman or Brahman. Everybody remember that bit? Bit tedious, I know, but I thought I had to do it. So this verse is almost a repetition of, wait for it, verse number 23, way back. So he is repeating this because in spite of his elaborate teaching, many don't understand this topic. So he's consciously repeating the teaching, not out of a weakness that he's forgotten something, but out of compassion that people get it. So there are two reasons to show that I'm different from the body. First, I'm the experiencer, and the body is experienced. The experiencer and the experienced cannot be the same, right? I'm the experiencer subject, and the body is the experienced object. The experiencer and the experienced cannot be the same. The seer eye cannot be seen at any time. All right? When you look out with your eyes, and don't say, put a mirror in front of you, Ram. Well, naturally, when you look out with your eyes, you're seeing. The eyes are the subject. It is seeing, and whatever it sees, right, are the objects that it sees. The two are not the same, yet you cannot see your eyes because it is the subject. We refer to this body as my body. My body is sick. My body is strong. Whatever, right? What is referred to as mine cannot be me. My house, my wedding ring, my sofa. It cannot be me. What is mine is related to me. My wife, my son, my daughter. But what is related to me cannot be me. There's a reference to the body as mine. We tend to use it all the time. This is my body. And because of this reference, right, the body also cannot be me. If the body cannot be me because of these two fundamental differences, one is the experiencer experienced, and the other one is the minus, the relationship. Because of these two, the body cannot be me. So how can I say that I am the body, and the body and pure consciousness are one and the same, he says. Verse 33. It is a fact of direct experience that the I, Atman, is without any change, whereas the body is always undergoing changes. So how can this body be the Purusha? Another reason is given to show that I'm different from the body. He's trying to drive it home because this is the fundamental mistake we make, is that we think that we are the body. So he's spending a lot of time and effort on this thing to get it past this first hurdle. right? I, the Atman, am free from all modifications or changes. But one day the body will die. As far as I'm concerned, I'm the witness of the changes. I'm ever free. Now, because we live and we associate ourselves with the body, we have some doubt about how I exist after the death of the body. All right? It can't be experienced until it happens. And then you're too late to write me an email to say, Ram, it's not worked out the way you said. All right? We don't have that experience yet. So since this cannot be experienced, I do not know my condition until after death. Since it cannot be proved, we take an experience that is similar to death and analyze that. And such a similarity would be a change of state, a different state of experience, such as dream or sleep. Right? Death is therefore often compared to a long sleep, where I don't experience the body, I don't experience the world. All right? I don't transact with anyone. No one is able to transact with me. For all practical purposes, I am dead to the world. A sleeping person is a dead person. Similarly, after death, you also exist in unmanifest form and take a new birth as if waking up after sleep. The dreamer, as well as the sleeper, is as good as dead. But the difference between the dreamer and the sleeper is the dreamer continues to transact. But the dreamer is not transacting with this world. And the people of this world can't transact with the dreamer. The dreamer is transacting in his own world of his own creation. We call it the dream world. Therefore, whether we transact or not, whether we transact with this world or some other world, we continue to exist. All the time, whether we're transacting or not transacting, we continue to exist. However, the body is subject to modification, clearly evident in our day-to-day transactions. Stand in front of the mirror long enough, and there'll be a change that you notice. And that change is directly experienced. How can this changing, dirty body be taken as the pure consciousness? Adi Shankara asks. Verse 34. Wise men have ascertained the real nature of Purusha from that Shruti text. There is nothing higher than Purusha. So how can this body be Purusha? This is verse 34. We said earlier that up until verse 33, the discrimination between the Atma and the Sharira, especially the gross body and Atma, this differentiation, discrimination is going to take along the lines of logic and reasoning. From verse 34 onwards, he brings in Shruti, which is the revealed text, which is basically the Vedas. So now from verse 34 onwards, he's now quoting parts of the Vedas. So from this verse 34 until 38, the same. The Viveka of the Stula Shariram is done with the help of the scriptures. Different Vedic statements are going to be given. And a well-known mantra is from the Mahanarayana Upanishad. It's an Upanishad that we haven't studied. It's an Upanishad we won't study. mainly because Adi Shankara didn't write extensive notes on it. But Mahanaranya Upanishad is quoted in this verse. And the mantra is often chanted in temples and used whenever a sannyasi is welcomed. It's a very well-known mantra. And basically, the essence of the mantra is, Atman is beyond all the koshas. Remember the koshas, the sheaths, the Annamaya kosha, Pranamaya kosha, so on. Atman is beyond all the koshas, beyond the 14 lokas, the 14 levels. And it is beyond everything, but nothing is beyond that Atman. That's what the quote is. The relevance of the mantra is that Purusha, pure consciousness, is beyond the body. Adi Shankara wants to say that the nature of Atman is well ascertained in this Shruti statement. And is ascertained by who? By intelligent people. Intelligent people reading this statement, reading this verse in the Shruti, will easily come to the conclusion that Atman is beyond everything. When the Shruti says it so clearly, how can we take Atman to be the body? So having gone through the reasoning and logic, he's now starting to quote verses from the Vedas themselves, in this case an Upanishad here, to reinforce his ideas that Atma and the body cannot be the same. Verse 35. Again, the Shruti has declared in the Purusha Shuktam that all this is verily the Purusha. So how can this body be the Purusha? Here Adi Shankara is quoting another statement from a part of the Vedas called Purusha Shaktam, which states that Purusha is everything. In fact, if I put your Sanskrit is good enough, if I put up the statement that is in Purusha Shaktam, it says Purusha eva idam sarvam. So is always everywhere. Purusha is always everywhere. It is all pervading, is what that sentence is saying. It doesn't directly differentiate Atman and the body. And it says that Purusha is all pervading. And from that we have to derive that Purusha is different from the body. Right? How do you do that? Well, if I'm Purusha, the Veda is saying, well, that Purusha is everything. All right? If I'm the body, can I say that the body is everything? No. This body is different to your body, this body is different to this table, this chair, this outside, the tree and everything. All right? Since I cannot say that my body is everything, if I take myself to the body, Purusha must be something different to the body. Because the statement says Purusha is everything. I, the Purusha, must refer to the unlimited Atma and not to the limited body. And this being so, how can the body, the physical body, be the same as pure consciousness, Atma, Brahman, Purusha? Is everybody with me so far? Now, I lost you about 20 minutes ago, Ram, but carry on. Verse 36. So also it is said in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. This is not only the largest Upanishad, it has one of the largest names and difficult to pronounce. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. It is said in that the Purusha is completely unattached. How can this body, wherein inhere innumerable impurities, within this body there are innumerable impurities, how can this body be the Purusha, the pure consciousness, he asks. So here Adi Shankara is quoting another Upanishad which states Purusha is not connected to anything in creation. Pure consciousness is not connected to anything in creation. Right? It is relationless. It is connectionless to anything else. This also doesn't directly say that Atma is not the body, right? And we have to derive that idea. If Purusha is the body, then the body is related to everything in this creation, right? If I take myself to the body, I'm related to wife, to children, to house, to dog, to everything, all right? This body has a relationship with other bodies, their parent, child, uncle, aunt, you name it, we are it, okay? It's connected with the earth in the form of cause-effect relationship. The body is connected to places, is connected to time, is connected to objects, is connected to situations. Therefore, that body is related and the body is transactional. But the Upanishad says that the Purusha is not attached. Asanga is the word it uses. Unattached. Pure consciousness, Purusha, is unattached. It is beyond all relationships. It is transcendental. It's beyond transactions. All right. The body is attached. Purusha is unattached. How can this body, attached body, be the same as the unattached Purusha? Adi Shankara asks. Right. Purusha is not the body. Purusha is Chaitanya. As you know, that's a word commonly used for consciousness. Chaitanya, consciousness. Purusha is consciousness that pervades the body. Do I need to mention the 3 P's again? Consciousness is not a part, product, or property of a substance. The body is a substance. Therefore, consciousness is not a part, product, or property of it. It's an independent entity that pervades and enlivens all. Right? Consciousness extends beyond nama rupa, names and forms, and it'll survive even after all other objects, all these other nama rupa, names and forms, cease to be. Atman, the self, is asanga, unattached, and suddha, it is pure, free from impurities, is suddha. So the 2 words we have, Purusha, Atman, is asanga, unattached, suddha, pure, free from all impurities. However, the body is associated with everything, and associated with all types of impurities. That's why we have to clean it regularly. Not only physical dirt and dust, but also bad habits, desire, greed, frustration, anger, which we regularly have to look out for and eliminate also. Atman, on the other hand, is not connected to anything. It does not have these impurities, whether physical or subtle. Right? How can the body and Chaitanya, how can the body and the consciousness be one and the same? Adi Shankara asks. Is he getting through that the body and Atma are not the same? Has he said it enough times? He'll just say it a little bit more. Verse 37. There again, it is clearly stated the Purusha is self-illumined. So how can the body, which is inert, the body is inert, insentient, how can that body, which is illumined by an external agent, be the Purusha? Right? So Adi Shankara is referring to another statement occurring in the same section of the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So he quotes twice in 2 verses. And this quote states, "It is self-evident and does not need any pramana." Lovely word, this, pramana. And we've had it before. Does anybody know what pramana means? Have a go?
Means of knowledge.
Means of knowledge. Yes, pramana. All right. So, pramana is a means of knowledge or a means of knowing. So this Upanishad is saying that pure Purusha, pure consciousness, is self-evident, does not need any pramana to prove itself. Right. So in my daily life, I come to know many things, and the coming to know them is proved by some pramana or other. Right? When I see something, is proved by the means of knowing, which is sight. If I hear something, the means of knowing is hearing, and so forth. So in my day-to-day transactions, I come to know about the world as a result of one pramana or another. Right? But I am the only thing that is proved without any operation of any pramana. Right? So I understand that every object I come to know, I have to come to know through a means of knowing. Correct? How do you know that you exist? What is the means of knowing? Do you see yourself? Hear yourself? Perhaps taste yourself to know that you exist? You are the only thing that is proved. How is it proved? If I ask you, do you exist? Is it proven or is it conjecture? Do you say, Ram, I think I exist? Right? If you say, I think I exist, then who is the one who's thinking? That's the existing one. That's the one I want to talk to. So you are the only thing that is proved without any operation of any pramana. Everything else requires a pramana. Any operation of any pramana needs me, the knower. So first of all, not only do I not need proof, do I not need a pramana to know me, right? I need me to know anything else. Anybody come to know something without being present? No. All right? I'm the only thing that is proved without any operation of any pramana, means of knowing. Any operation of any pramana needs me, the knower. And that is why I do not need a proof. The knower, Janet was saying, these Sanskrit words you keep on posting to us, the knower is called a pramata. The knower need not be proved by means of knowledge, a pramana, and therefore the knower is self-evident. Whatever is self-evident is called consciousness. The fact that you know that you exist is self-evident. You do not need a third party. You don't need a means of knowing to come to that conclusion, to come to that idea being true. It is a fact. It's called self-evident. It's self-illuminated. You do not need anything else to prove it. All right? You need not be conscious of consciousness to prove consciousness. I'll repeat that, shall I? Ram, it's getting very hard for almost 9 o'clock at night. You need not be conscious of consciousness to prove consciousness. Right? You never become conscious of consciousness. Because to become conscious of consciousness, you'd need a second consciousness. Right? Consciousness here could be awareness. To become aware of awareness, you need another awareness. And then you'll need another awareness to become aware of that awareness. And so it'll go on and on. You do not need to be, there's no need to be conscious of consciousness to prove consciousness. You just know. I'm the conscious being. I am the knower. How do you know? Self-evident. Right? Clearly. I don't need any mechanism to come to know that I'm the knower. I know the knower for certain. Consciousness is self-evident as aham, in the form of I. Consciousness is self-evident as I, the knower. That's why throughout this class, you're conscious of the words of mine, right? Not once do you question whether you're attending the class. Do you? Never. You do not need any effort to know you're conscious of being here in this class. No effort is required at all. Effort is required in hearing the words, in understanding the words, right? You become conscious of everything else without attempting to be self-conscious. Right? Never once in this class have you said, oh, I've heard all these words. I better figure out whether I'm actually here or not. Right? It doesn't happen. When you are conscious, you are not self-conscious. Only because of your self-evident consciousness can you hear everything in class. Right? Everything else requires consciousness to prove it, except consciousness itself, which is self-proven. Everything else requires consciousness to prove it, and that's why it's called jada, inert. So we're now starting to get some real meanings of these words that we've used. Jada means inert. The body has been called jada, inert, insentient. In order to prove the existence of an insentient thing, you need sentiency to prove it. Everything else requires consciousness to prove it, and that's why everything else is called jada, inert, by itself. They were quite bright, these people, right? So Chaitanya, consciousness, is defined as self-evident, right? While jada, all the objects in the world, are defined as consciousness evident. Not self-evident, consciousness evident. Because it is evident because of consciousness. All right? Now, how are the two related? The two cannot be the same. This is the old story of, hey, I need to borrow some money. Well, I haven't got any money. Well, if I lend you some money, will you be able to lend it back to me? Right? Two people cannot borrow from each other simultaneously. Similarly, Chaitanya and Jada cannot have mutual dependence, and therefore one has to be independent and the other is dependent. Adi Shankara is saying that the body is consciousness evident. Its body is inert, is jada, and jada is consciousness evident. It has to be proved through consciousness. Without the blessing of consciousness, the existence of the body cannot be proved. Right? Without the existence of consciousness, the body cannot be proved. Let's go back to our sleep example. In sleep, you cannot prove the existence of the body. Why? Because you have to identify with the body to prove the existence. You have to connect the two things together. In sleep, I'm disconnected from the body. My existence is very evident during sleep because I continue to exist because I wake up and I said I slept very well. I remember the things that I thought about before I went to sleep. I have continued to be, right? But the body and world has been shut down. Atman is self-evident and is equal to Chaitanya, pure consciousness, right? This body is the nature of jada, is the nature of inertness, insentiency. And this body has to be proved by sentiency, by consciousness. So Atman is the nature of consciousness, and the body is the nature of inertness. How can an inert bundle of matter that we call the body be the same as the self-evident consciousness principle? Adi Shankara asks. This last verse seems to be very complicated. I say seems to be very complicated. It's actually not very complicated if you just sit down and work through it. All right? That consciousness is required in order to prove the existence of matter. And the body is matter. I want to do one last verse, verse 38, because believe it or not, in verse 38, Adi Shankara leaves the topic of just trying to prove that we're not the body, which has been doing since verse 12, ultimately. Then he picked on this one in, I think, the 18th verse or something. So in 38, he drops it. So let's do this last verse. Verse 38, the translation reads, "Moreover, the Karma Kanda also declares that Atman is different from the body and permanent, as it endures even after the fall of the body and reaps the fruits of actions." Right? The fruit of actions are done in this life, the consequences. So first of all, we have to say, what's Karma Kanda? Does anybody remember what Karma Kanda is? Duh. Kanda means section. So what does karma mean? Action. The action section.
It's the beginning part of the Vedas.
Is the beginning part of the Vedas. Is called Karma Kanda, the part that does the rituals, the actions that are required in life. All right, that's the Karma Kanda, and that's what he's now quoting. So the same topic continues, which is trying to prove that Atma is not the body, but here Adi Shankara says that even the Karma Kanda of the Vedas, the first section of the Vedas, prove that you are not the body. Notice the word he uses. It proves that you are not the body. The Karma Kanda says that if you perform this and this ritual, you'll achieve this and this punya, and so much punya that you'll go on to a higher loka, a higher plane on death, i.e. you'll ascend to heaven after death. That's why the Karma Kanda is full of rituals. Anything that you've ever wanted in a materialistic life, they have an app. I mean, they have a ritual for that. All right? All you have to do is perform the ritual implicitly, explicitly, and the result is guaranteed. All right? It's full of rituals. Rituals are actions. And you get the punya, the consequences of that ritual, and you achieve the result that you want. Now, we know that after death, the physical body is disposed of. All right? Now, in India, it's always cremation. So the body is disposed of and does not go to any other loka. So the Karma Kanda says that if you perform these good actions, these actions benefit from the punya so derived, and you will go to heaven. Karma Kanda says that. But we know when somebody dies, you light a torch under them. They go up in smoke. All right, you can be confused in this country that you bury them and you don't know what really happens to them. Maybe they crawl out and get out somewhere and go to heaven somewhere past the churchyard and turn left. All right? But in India, it's just cremation. And visual cremation as that. And you're supposed to stay until the end. So, we know that the physical body is not available after death. Yet we still say you'll go to heaven. Sargaloka, that's what the Karma Kanda said. If we have sufficient punya. What goes to heaven must be something other than the physical body. Right? If you say that you go to heaven and you burn the body and the body can't possibly now make it to heaven, then what goes to heaven must be different from the body. What is that something that is other than the body? I hate to tell you, but it's not of our concern here in this particular verse. We're quoting this to prove the point that you're not the body, because the body cannot go to any other loka. It cannot go to heaven. The ritualist, the people who follow the Karma Kanda, know that the body is not Atman. Otherwise, they wouldn't burn the body. In fact, any religion is sufficient to know that I'm not the body. The idea of a soul is in every religion, that after death the soul ascends, yet the body seems to stay on the ground, underground or overground or as dust. Every religion is sufficient to know that I'm not the body. The soul is different from the body. And if a person who's steeped in the Karma Kanda, soaked in it, knows that they're not the body, that Atma is somebody different from the body, that Atma is called Jiva, is the one who performs the various karmas, is the doer, and that Jiva will travel to Sargaloka, will go to heaven. Right? And why will the Jiva travel? Why will the soul travel when the body doesn't? Because the body dies and gets cremated, but the soul is eternal. So people who are following the Karma Kanda know that you are the eternal traveler. That after death you'll go to heaven. All right? And after that, you'll have a rebirth and come back down. And then you'll die and you go to heaven. And on and on and on. So people who believe in the Karma Kanda know that the Jiva is eternal. Right? It's interesting. To know that I'm eternal, you don't need to come to the Jnana Kanda. What's the Jnana Kanda? Is the other end of the Vedas to the Karma Kanda. Is the knowledge section, Jnanam Kanda. Jnana Kanda, the knowledge section, not the Karma Kanda, the action section. at the beginning of the Vedas. So it's interesting. It's saying you don't need to go to the knowledge section to know that you are eternal. Because even at the Karma Kanda level, you know that you're not the body. And the Karma Kanda talks about previous, present, and future births. And all of these things reveal that Atman is Nitya, is eternal. And the body is not Atman at any stage. Right? Karma Kanda reveals an I which is eternal. What is it doing? It's eternally traveling. Death of this body, it travels, it gets out of here. Gets into another body, lives through that. Death of the body, what does it do? It travels. Right? The Karma Kanda says that I'm the eternal traveler. But the Jnana Kanda, the knowledge section, reveals the non-traveling consciousness. Right? So the shift from Karma Kanda to Jnana Kanda is the eternal traveler I gets converted to the non-traveler eternal I. That's what knowledge does for you. Before knowledge, you thought you were forever traveling, but eternal. After knowledge, you realize that you aren't traveling, but you're still eternal. The traveler is called a samsari. Right? As you travel through the lives, you derive the ups and downs of life, and the non-traveler one is called Jivan Mukta, the enlightened one. When you realize that you are the non-traveling eternal I, you are enlightened. That's the difference between the Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda. It doesn't say Karma Kanda still believes that you're eternal, right? You go on forever. It's only get to the Jnana Kanda that you realize that you don't actually travel. You can't travel. Why? Your pure consciousness that's all pervading. There is nowhere that you are not. There is nowhere for you to go. Now sometimes travel is slow, and any traveler therefore is a samsari. And people say, oh, what's wrong with travel? I love travel. Travel is wonderful if you can stop wherever you want to, right? If you cannot stop, it's not so nice. Continuous travel is not a pleasant thing, right? From the merry-go-round to, what did we say? The worry-go-round. If you're continuously traveling, it is not a pleasant thing. Samsara is wonderful if it's under my control. But when I have no control over it, samsara becomes a misery to me. Right? Only when I come to Jnana Kanda, the knowledge section of the Vedas, do I come to understand that I'm different from the gross body, the subtle body, the causal body, because that's where the traveling takes place. Once in a while, you can choose to be the body and mind, have a wonderful time, go to a concert or a yoga festival, have a peach of a time. But after gaining jnanam, you can enjoy the world but withdraw as and when you like from it, because you know the true nature of the self. Remember, if you're imprisoned in a room, it's miserable. But if you choose to remain in a room to meditate, it becomes wonderful. Same room, but is it out of choice? If you are forced to be in a cell to do something which is against your liking, it is samsara. Right? Even after the fall of the body, the jiva continues to travel and experience the punya and papa it has created. Jnana is not to teach you that you are not the body, because the Karma Kanda already does that. The Jnana is there, not that you need to be taught that you're not the body, because the Jnana is there to be taught that you are not the mind. Right? You're not the body is easy. The ritualists do that bit in the first few lines of the Karma Kanda. Why do I need to go and study all these Upanishads, Ram? You need to understand that you are not the mind. And therefore, with this argument, Adi Shankara closes his long string of arguments, both logical and Shruti Pramana based, that says Atman and the body are different. They are not one and the same. And from next week, he'll carry on and give the argument of why you're not the mind. Questions? Is this more difficult than people thought, or is it the same thing but said in such different ways that it means completely different things? I'd be interested in feedback.
Same thing, different ways.
Yes, these are Adi Shankara's words, and he of course uses the Shruti Pramana wherever he can. But it's interesting how much effort he's put into just saying you're not the body. He could have just said it and moved on. But verse after verse after verse, he says, do you want another example why you're not the body? And he gives all the logical ones first. So you don't need to be steeped in Vedanta to understand that you're not the body. And then just towards the end, it says, by the way, we're also told this in the Shruti, in the text, in the Shastra. And then finally, he comes to this argument that actually you're told it in the, even if you haven't even been to the knowledge section of the Vedas, you're actually told this right at the beginning. Just think about it logically. I find it very interesting. His mind is really so deep. It's amazing. Well, if you're not enjoying it, I am, so it's okay. That's all that all needs to happen, really. Any questions? What did we have the short meditation last week? What did people think about that wind down last week? Good? Come on, you must have questions. Give me a good question. Keep me on my toes. Bobby, you've been silently listening, soaking it all in.
Absorbing it all, absolutely.
And how's it going for you? Okay, this text?
Yes, absolutely. Very much like what Tim said, very much the same messages said in different ways. And I suppose that's what's nice, is to hear it in different ways. But you just feel the essence is so much of what we've done before. But it is nice to hear different language around it.
Yeah, good. Anything else? Jason, how are you doing with it? Okay?
Yes, I'm enjoying it very much, Ram. Yes, it seems to be. I like the way that he builds the argument, that he builds the case by repeating himself, but by giving different examples.
Yes, yeah. And he doesn't want you to get away with it. That's the thing. That he'll give you lots of different ways, and you can't possibly, at the end of the day, have an argument against it. So, yeah, it's good in that way. That's why it's a good text to study, really. I'm glad you're staying with us. That's good, because you're one of the three newcomers. So well done for doing that. I don't think Vicky's with us, but other people. But we've got our old crowd here. Julia, Lorraine, they've been around in the classes for ages. Tim. I think the Will is the the I'm not going to say the oldest student because you're not, but you know what I mean. You've been around longest around here, and you've heard this every way that's possible. So,
Well, also I've gone through it in the lockdown with Swami Sarvapriya's talks on YouTube. I think Tim has as well. And I've been following it as we go along with this as well. Again,
right.
so
Okay.
it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's good. I'm really. I like it as a text. Okay. What do you want to do? Do you want to do a quick 5-minute shutdown just to calm your head out of all these words and actually be able to sleep tonight? Otherwise, as somebody said, I dreamt about you, as one of my students once said. So I'd rather that not happen, quite honestly, because you never know what sort of character I can be coming across in a dream. So, okay. All right, let's just have a quiet shutdown, and I'll finish with 3 Om Shantis, and then we'll go into the closing prayer as usual. Aim to finish at 9:30, which is our standard time. Okay, I'll switch off my video, but obviously keep the voice on. So you're well practiced at calming yourself. So whatever technique works best for you, what you want to do is calm the various aspects of you, and the most gross aspect of you is the physical body. And that's why we try and calm that down as far as possible. There are automatic functions which will carry on automatically. The heart and breathing, all the circulation properties will work. But now for the first time, with the body still, and a time to think, and time to be aware, is the first time really in the class that you can contemplate upon awareness itself. As a result of that awareness, you heard all the words. You understood the words. Even understood the meaning. But what is the nature of that awareness itself? That consciousness that I am. In the presence of which the words came through. I don't ever have to work for that awareness. I have never not believed that I am aware. It is a fundamental truth. is self-awareness that I don't need to prove. It is there in everything I do. It is the one constant. While everything else changes. My body changes. My mind changes. Situations in my world change. I, the awareness, never change. And the body, the mind, and the world are only available to me because of my awareness. I am required to prove everything. Nothing can be proven without me. Yet I don't need any proof. I am the ultimate knower. Not in the sense that I come to know things, but in the presence of which things are known. I always have to be present when things are known. Everything happens within consciousness. Even matter is proved by consciousness. And that pure consciousness, Purusha, Chaitanyam, Atma, Brahman, that pure consciousness I am. Om Shanti. 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 Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishtate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, everyone.